G'day guys, for those of you who don't already know me, my name's John Walter and I've had a racing-based service named Racing Watch for the last 7 or 8 years now. In the last 12 months or so I've been also providing products to Want to Follow and Punter Show, and they've all been successful products to varying degrees. So during that time we've got a lot of inquiries and questions asked from avid subscribers and people wanting to learn more about doing the form and things, questions of how I do form, how I do post pre-race analysis, of how do I come up with prices, all sorts of questions. So I thought the best thing to do would be to produce a few videos that would make it easier for people to understand a bit of what goes on behind the scenes, and might give them a few ideas on how to do things themselves. So I'm going to start today with a bit of work on post-race analysis and things that go into that. It will be a brief overview because it's just too big a topic to cover in 1 or 2 videos. Like I can, down the line, I will go into little specific areas more, like you might say with post-race analysis, things like working out pace of races, why it's relevant, different paces, how they are problematic to some horses and help others in races, things like that. I'll go into that in the future, but that one topic itself could be a few hours long if you really wanted to stretch it out. So we'll just touch on like a really brief outline of how I do things, and we'll go from there down the line. I'll do a similar video with pre-race analysis. That might have to have a little bit more into it because a little bit more goes into that, setting up a meeting, making sure your prices are right, and covering all bases there. But I'll hopefully have that video up as well in the next few days. But we'll start with pre-race analysis today, and hopefully people can get a little bit out of it. There's no rocket science involved. I'm no genius. That's I just working hard doing the same processes all the time that seem to work and find a little bit of an edge over the market. So hopefully everyone will get something out of it. People who've been in the industry a long time might not get as much as others, but hopefully everyone enjoys it. And if I'm a bit crook at the moment, so I apologise for the voice, and bear with me, but hopefully everyone gets something out of it. Thanks guys. Okay, so the point of this video is a brief introduction into how I do post-race analysis, what goes into it, the tools I use, and the processes. Obviously I won't go deeply into everything because it'll just take way too long, and maybe each section I can break down in a separate video over time, but we'll just go through the tools I use, quickly how it goes through, and I'll go through a few races and show you a few things that I like to look for. I'll leave a lot out because it's there's many things that you just, it's very hard to put into one little video. So we'll start with the tools I use, and the first thing I use on a daily basis is a database program called Ratings to Win. They not only provide form and information on just about everything you could possibly require in a race, but they also provide things like speed max ratings for people that like those, jockey ratings, all sorts of good stuff. I might touch on that more when I do a pre-race analysis or a setup or a framing of a market or something like that. But for today's video, we're just going to talk about post-race analysis. So things I use Ratings to Win for in that respect are they provide basically a race quality, which is an adjusted figure that's after everything's been calculated to against what you should expect from that class of race over that distance at that track. So on Saturday, this is Saturday's meeting, the best race of the day was Winx's race, and that's not just because it was a Group 1, it's performed the best as opposed to its expected outcome. The worst race of the day was Sultry Feelings race in race 8, so it's gone about 4 lengths less than what they should. So the other things, these represent sectional times. They'll look like gibberish to anyone that hasn't used this program before, but I use a combination of their sectional times, and I also use Vince Icardi's check times and I'll have a look at his IVR stuff as well. These times are, you know, a lot accurate. I use them a lot more in the country and provincial sort of areas than I will in the city, because the times are a lot closer to what are advertised in the city. But I still will use them. I'll still look at raw sectional times, which Ratings to Win doesn't provide. So it's good to look at them and compare on the day and things like that. But yeah, also I'll use they're two main tools I use. I also use dynamic odds quite a bit to look at, you know, fluctuations in horses, corporates, you know, which corporates were betting what prices about what horses. There are patterns there between stables and things that, you know, seem to add up a lot of the time. You might be trying to explain a failure, and even though, you know, Betfair's not the be and end all, that they are a small piece of the puzzle, and other corporates who seem to bet overs on different stables and things like that, they can be a good hint to a horse's poor performance and that it was expected prior to the run. So the other main thing that we use a lot of is footage from Racing New South Wales. So you know, any that one's not a good one, but yeah, their footage is now that it's become free, is a huge tool for people to use and have at their dispersal for, you know, no outlay, which is incredible. I remember having to pay, you know, $1,500 a month for that privilege not too long ago. So we'll get into Saturday and looking at the Rosehill meeting from Saturday. The basis of any good post-race analysis is your setup, and that's making sure that you've worked out the pace and if there's any bias, or pace for every race, and if there's any bias present for the meeting, before you look at the vision, so that you've got a clear mind going into watching vision of what to expect, and the horses that will be favoured or, you know, disadvantaged on that particular day, you know, or if it's an even track, everyone's sort of running on their own merit. So using sectional times and vision is the best way to determine pace, and if there was a bias, it helps to do the pace first, because if you go through and do pace for each race, it will, you know, a bias may be apparent to the eye watching, you know, leaders get home all day, or horses on the fence or something like that. But if they're, you know, advantaged by pace, you know, it's irrelevant. It's the track has not been, you know, may not have been biased on the day. It's more that the speed related outcome to the races, and the horses that have had the better runs have got home, rather than you know, horses that were advantaged by a track condition. So Saturday, just to keep it simple here, we'll just use Ratings to Win to determine paces, and these numbers, you know, the higher the number represents the faster they've gone. So this is just a first half, second half sort of basis here, LFS, LS, first half, second half, and you can see pretty clearly. So this is a 105.99, means they've gone out at a reasonable take, come home a little bit slow, so it's a fast pace. Second race, nearly the opposite. They've gone out steady, come home quicker, slowish pace, steady pace, slowish pace, slowish pace, very slow pace, fast pace, which is, you know, one of the few for the day in Capitalist race, and then Grionte's race also a reasonably quick tempo, back to a reasonably slow tempo, and then an even tempo to finish the day. So you've got a good mix here of you know, fast, slow, and indifferent sort of steady tempos. So you shouldn't, the pattern of the day, if there is a pattern to the vision and where horses have come from and where horses have failed, there's a strong likelihood there is a bias on this day. So if we quickly look through a couple of races from this day. The first race is probably not a great example to work things out, because it's, you know, it's a reasonably fast, well, and it's a, you know, a steady pace, so horses should have had their chance, but the way this worked out, Vergara was actually the only leader that got home on the day. So
neck on also Reach getting closer at the 600. Sweetfire inching closer in the third.
The winner here leads all the way. Second horse is back and wide, but he's a favourite runner. And third horse sat 3 wide, no cover throughout over a long distance, so 1900 metres. So that it's he, just from quickly looking at the vision, you'd say Vergara's probably formed a little bit better than expected. Sweetfire's put in a huge run, but you wouldn't believe, the wide was a huge disadvantage because it is still quite strong on the line, and the favoured runner, Evans Abuzz, has come back from back and wide. So, clutching at straws, you've got a couple of runners here that have run above themselves in out in the market. So, clutching at straws in this race, one out, you'd say probably that position in here was the faster part of the track. But, one out again, it's tough to say, so leave that race alone, and we'll leave the staying race alone and go to Southern Legends race. Southern Legends in this one out, one back position here. Second horse, Egyptian Symbol, 3 back the rails. And the third horse, Den Magic's 4 back the rails. In the straight, Southern Legend comes through here, sort of into that same sort of lane. Egyptian Symbol cuts back and then moves off the inside into that lane, and Den Magic tracked through before pulling around Southern Legend's heels and finishing off strongly late. So they've all had cover in the run, they've all got to that same sort of position in the track. Den Magic might be just outside it, but they're all there together. And as it turned out, that seemed to be the pattern for most of the day. The United States and Haraki sort of cleared out through that part as well. Winks sat wide, and you just got to be careful with horses like Winks because they can be too good for a bias. They can overcome a bias, but Kermadec ran second and ran better than its market sort of price. And it came through that same position again. Tarzino's race, Rosehill Guineas at a bit of a slowish pace, so but again, winner, second horse Montaigne, 3 back the rails. Jamaica set outside the slow pace, but a strong effort because not one horse has sort of done anything from that position outside the leader there today, so it was a strong effort. And then Bambra comes wide from back against the slow pace, so each run was strong and has done something that not a lot of horses did on the day. But again, from a bias point of view, in this sort of 2 to 5, 6 metres off the rail, just behind the speed with cover was the place to be. And the final prover, we'll look at the slipper in the fast pace. Third horse, Flying Artie, winner, Capitalist. Second horse, Yankee Rose, right outside it. So again, all in that same sort of position, just behind speed with cover. All of them get off the straight in the run, off the fence in the run. Flying Artie gets the run through. Capitalist and Yankee Rose getting to the middle of the track. Her effort was very strong. She's sort of finished outside that lane. A couple of horses did run on there, but still looks tough for it to do that in this area where Flying Artie and Capitalist was until Perrin's cutting back to. So on the day, we sort of it wasn't a strong bias by any means, but it was definitely an advantage to be behind speed with cover, preferably on the fence, getting off the fence in the straight into that laneway that about 2 to 5, 6 metres off the inside running rail. And beauty of this system is that I can then oops, I don't want to do that. I want to set a meeting comment behind pace with cover is a positive, off rails in the straight up to 5 metres, positive wide no cover, negative wide in straight and negative. So I'd probably abbreviate that a little bit more if it was just for myself, but for the purpose of this we'll add that in, and now every horse in that meeting will have that forever next to their name. So if I ever want to review it or go back and look at a horse, a particular horse in a particular meeting, we'll see straight away where the best place to be there was if I want to have a look at the footage. And so now that you've sort of established a pace of a race which is I'll have to go into that in more detail in another time, because there is so many different types of speed, severity of pace, slow, fast, and different ways it affects races. But for this exercise, we'll do the Golden Slipper race. It's not a diabolical speed by any stretch of the imagination, especially for a slipper, but they've obviously gone out harder than they've come home. So it was a genuine tempo. All horses, on speed were at a slight disadvantage, and those behind, back in the field had their chance to run on. So we'll do a quick review of it. From a marks perspective. So here we're looking visually, we know the race was a decent race, so we're going into it fairly positively, trying to find excuses for beaten horses, things missed starts, little things like that. We're picking up on the things that everyone looks for. You're also looking for horses that have done it tough, and you're trying to be sympathetic to them, and then also you want to be negative towards horses that have sort of just camped out of it, done nothing, and then got into the right position in the straight, but never really looking a winner. So straight off the bat, we see Extreme Choice, who we expect to be in the firing line up here, checked out of the race, and basically losing all chance after 100 metres. On this small horse, and he was just squeezed straight out of the race. So this does a few things. It takes him out of the race, obviously, and you want to be sympathetic to him going forward, but it also detracts from the race's overall sort of quality, because your 9-4 favourite is no longer taking part in the race, and when Capitalist goes on to win, this horse basically wasn't given a fair chance to win. So it's hard to be too positive on anything that wins the race because of that. Stern's working hard from a wide gate on a fast pace. Sweet Cherry moves forward to lead, and Gay's horse Scarlet Rain gets trapped through wide, no cover, and working hard the whole way. So from the first part of the race, you're obviously being sympathetic towards
So's Honesty Prevails.
Sweet Cherry, Stern, and mostly to
Capitalist on the rails from Yankee
Scarlet
Rose,
Rain.
Kiss and Make Up
She's working
midfield,
hard and wide, so the wider you are with no cover, the harder it is on a fast tempo, and the more you look after those horses after the race and be
and would you
sympathetic
believe
to
it, the
them.
favourite Extreme Choice is last. Down the
You see
side
the
of the
horses in
roughing,
the
Sweet
best
Cherry
challenging sort
leads
of positions
out by a
from
length to Astern.
where we know the best part of the track is Flying Artie, who's probably a little bit out of its comfort zone. It's been ridden more forward than it has been before, so you take that into effect. Capitalist, Yankee Rose, Honesty Prevails, all in the right positions.
Flying Artie railing through into third from Scarlet Rain out deep as they race
Flying
So it's a
Artie
bit of a
railing through into third from
double-edged
Scarlet
sword here,
Rain out
because you
deep
want to be,
as they race
these are
up
the
to
horses in general, as a racehorse, you want to be backing a lot of, like these horses that can get just behind pace with cover and finish off. They're the ones that win a lot of races. So any of these horses, the ones that are you want to be on mainly in the future. But today they're in a position that is an advantage, so you've sort of got to be careful to
Turn in the slipper,
get
Honesty
too carried
Prevails
away with
between them, Capitalist looking for the run, then Yankee Rose, Scarlet Rain,
Capitalist burst
and
into
further
the
back
clear.
to French Fern, Sweet Cherry
Shows
leads
nicely
from the
show the
well
foot.
fancied
sort of take hold of the race.
Capitalist is into the clear,
Whereas Yankee
Flying
Rose
Artie to
had
the
to
inside, and then
get out to
Honesty
the
Prevails.
little bit
Here's
inferior
Capitalist going up.
ground and go through a gears. Flying Artie's had every chance to get past the
The
150
Sweet
to 1
Cherry.
litre. He's run an enormous race really after setting a fast tempo and kicking. And then Honesty Prevails, who was also big odds, is just sort of batting away, but never looks the winner in this position. Astern drops out and pulled up with the thump, so there's another bit of a query against the race as a whole to say, maybe there's a few things that have gone on, and this is Extreme Choice as well, being checked again when he's sort of found a bit of momentum. And
Flying Artie, but Capitalist,
that was another
Magic Millions winners
bit of a
drawn
warning
clear in the
sign to the
slipper.
race.
Yankee
So
Rose home in a second, but Capitalist takes
really,
it out.
checked and blocked sort of things or things to pick up in the race. There wasn't a lot. Telperian's had to move ground, but it's made ground late against a fastest pace, so it's the truth about this horse is not really clear, so it's best to stay out on these sort of horses, in my opinion. Extreme Choice has had no chance to win the race. It's missed the start. It's run into dead ends. It's got chopped out. It's done everything. Everything that possibly could go wrong to him has, and he still finished quite close up. So you want to be on the positive side with him. Sweet Cherie's run well above itself. It's set at fast pace, kicked and run down. It's a positive sort of horse. Honesty Prevails is probably the one that's done the least and just lobbed in a good position and finished as close as she ever would. So she's the one to be a bit wary of going forward. Star Turn as well, probably didn't do a lot in the run but finished down the worst part of the track. Flying Artie's probably been ridden a bit close and that's what's cost him his finish, but still he's running on this race and there's no upside in knocking him. Yankee Rose, first up from the spell, just a huge run, and she's got out to the worst part of the track and run on well. Again, you only want to be positive about her, and Capitalist has done nothing wrong. He's had the good run, got out, put the race away, and won comfortably. So there's, from a video watching point of view, there's not a lot to be learnt here, from going forward in any huge negatives and positives. It's all sort of unfolded how you saw it, except for Extreme Choice. Probably you found the excuses with it. And that's about it going forward. We go back to our database and we can then record same thing I've done twice now, the post-race assessment. We can go in and record any sort of marks that we want to against these horses for the future. So Extreme Choice, squeezed at the start, wrong spot, checked it late, complete forgive. So that's pretty much sums his run up, and then the winner, every chance Pat in favour did so no negative. It's sort of equal or positive. You didn't want to be negative towards it, that's for sure. So these comments in this database are now saved to that horse forever, and I can always go back and check rather than having to watch the footage if I've got my own notes against them. So that's another positive for this sort of database. There are plenty like it, so everyone can find one to suit their own needs. I'll just quickly look at a few other races and what I'd look for. I won't go back through pace and bias and all that sort of stuff at these meetings. I'll just sort of go through them and what I'd why they're good races. So here's a race from Scone, and again there's so many different things you can be looking for, but this horse in particular is a horse called Rainbow Park. First up for John Sargent, so a staying sort of trainer. You just look at her to get back and finish off. She was, this is the time of the year you're looking out for his sort of Oaks horses, and he likes sending them to big tracks at Scone and things like that. So this horse in particular, you're looking, she's back here, Rainbow Park. They did go along okay in this race, and no real bias. It was a pretty fair track. So this horse here, Rainbow Park, you just want to see it run on from a future perspective. She obviously gives them a big start and not over the pressure here, but still
Molly in company with Royal Meld. Remituelli dropped back to centre field, then followed Irene Saga a long way back with Time Stalker, Woodgrove Mountain, Bakija and Rainbow Park as last of all. Jade Saga running in 7th spot in the centre.
Very quiet on the horse at this stage. Robert Thompson
Cape, the
gives it a
joint
couple
leaders.
of
In 3rd spot is Go Dolly Go, back to the inside position. Jade Saga looking for a gap,
see
and
what
then
it does
followed by
under its own sort of steam.
by
You
Golly
can see
Molly,
he's
3 off
not
the tee.
aggressive on it at all. You see her pick up
150 metre mark, Western
rapidly
Cape in the front. Jade
to the point
Saga
where
got
he's
the
nearly got to
split
restrain
first
before
through,
running over the
and
top of him.
Remituelli down the outside.
And then through the
Jade
line.
Saga, Remituelli right over the top. Beat Jade Saga.
Making ground
By
on their own
Golly Molly
steam,
got a
and then
late
gets
split
the
to
front
run
around the
3rd.
turn.
Royal Meld and Western Cape in a photo for 4th. Then Messation. Followed them by Rainbow
You don't see a lot of
Park.
this.
The Sopra
This is sort of a
got a stitch late.
bit of a flashing light run, but
Molly got a late split to run
a lot of people miss
3rd.
it because it's back in the
Through,
field.
and Remituelli down the outside.
From that, we were
Jade
sort of keen
Saga,
to follow her,
Remituelli,
and she did get
Remituelli.
beaten in a race at Hawkesbury
Right over the
2 starts
top.
back that came
Beat
out
Jade
was good for us on the
Saga.
weekend.
By Golly.
She finally got out to her trip around 2100 metres, which I think it's her 4th run back, but that's an example of, when you're looking at a stable of first up horses, you look at their horses a little bit differently, a staying stable, because they're going to treat it as basically a glorified barrier trial, and every now and then you'll find something like this, which is a little bit special, especially for a maiden. She's obviously got the ability to. This is only 1,100 metres to go up in trip and really finish the race off.
First through, and Rematueli down the
that's
outside. Jade Saga, Rematueli right over the
an
top.
example of a strong horse in a maiden. It's suited by going up in trip and given more time. One of the most clearly underplayed things in racing for mine is slow paces, because things like rating programs and computerised things, which a lot of people use these days, when they see a slow pace, it usually ends up with a slow time. So they don't seem to be able to compute those correctly, and they're often underplayed. When it's a slow pace, the horses are usually bunched together for most of the race, and then if at any stage they do spread out, especially the later the better, it usually means that there's some good things happen there, and one or two horses have done something that the rest of them couldn't do, and they should all have plenty of reserve, so they should all be sort of competing at their best at that stage. And if they can make things happen under those circumstances, you sometimes get a situation where the race is underplayed by the people out there and ratings programs, and you can get an advantage out of it. So this race was at Wyong a couple of weeks ago.
Nanadola broke pretty well from that
only
outside.
Only a 5-horse
Going
race,
fast
but
over
they
stride.
absolutely crawled
Also
in
there,
front.
Lasquetti Spirit
And
and Mandalon Les going forward with
they're
Chimbora,
very
and reinforcers going to
bunched
ease back
throughout.
to the tail of the field. So they sort themselves out.
And the eventual
So
winners
Mandalon Les, who's in
here,
the middle, Chimbora,
eventual second horse is Chimbora running second,
hold it one off the fence. Mandalon
or
Les now
leading.
takes a sit third, but look to be under pressure, passed there by reinforced.
This is 400 metres out. You've got sort of a length between these three, and only 2.5, 3 lengths maximum back to fifth. So this is when they start to ramp things up. And even here on the home turn, there's still only 3 to 4 lengths maximum between the whole field. Pretty short straight at Wyong, and these two pair off to race right away. Like they've both shown a strong turn of foot to get away from these other horses who should have all had plenty left, and they just continually open up the gaps between second, third. Opens right up third, fourth and fifth. So some good stuff's happened there on the turn. The time might have not been overly flash, and people might have thought, well, that was a pretty average race with two, decent horses in it. But they've done plenty to open those gaps up, and as it turned out, that Chimbora, which was the horse we thought could improve coming out of the race, because she's coming again on the line, if anything, so that slow speed's probably hurt her, even though she led more than anyone in the race. She went to a Group 2, I think, following that, and ran second at 100 to 1. So that's a good example of how you can still get a good advantage out of a slow-paced race. It doesn't matter whether in the country or the city. They're often underplayed because of just the overall times and how much importance people places on them these days. This is a slow-paced race in the city where the leader's done the opposite, so it's had every chance and can easily be overplayed because it's a city win. And
To release the field off, Chase and
so there's the first negative towards this race is one of the on-pace horses has missed it well
To
in the
release
market.
the field. Oh, Chasing.
Chasing $6.50 chance in the market that day. This is about as slow a speed as you'll get,
up in the air at the start, and
especially in a city race.
Has half gone up in the air at the start, and Chasing.
The eventual winner's third, the fence here, hand fast. Second horse is back, second last. $6.25 chance. It usually races on pace is basically out of the race by missing the start that badly, especially first up from a spell. Another horse in the market out here, wide, no cover. Northern Storm was under $10, it's wide, no cover, so there's a lot of negatives towards other runners happening here, while Handfast is the favourite. every chance behind the leader. Nothing much happens here. Home turn. And Fast gets the miracle inside run. You'll notice again there's a bunch between everyone. There's maybe 4 lengths between everyone. This horse has already worked to catch up with the field and it's already gone. But this time, instead of the margins opening and good things happening, there's basically the bunches running together like a flying V or something. Take Wings with a big flashing light run down the outside against the slow speed. And Handfast has basically got past one horse who's also performed poorly. These horses were all sort of wide and come wide and were disadvantaged. And Handfast is very lucky to hold on, where this horse, you know, much stronger. It's weakening, and the rest of them are doing nothing. So nothing's opened up, nothing good's happened. Take Wings proved that, you know, it probably should have won the race clearly. It's come from a tailed off position and run the lead, or the winner that sat third the fence with a cold run to a neck or a head, and he's a flattered horse. So you'd be wanting to be negative heavily towards this sort of horse going forward. Take Wing you want to be positive towards because he's done something that nothing in the race has done, and he's beaten the pace really, but he's just unfortunately didn't quite get there. Secret Prophet is another horse you don't want to be positive on because he's had the soft run in front, no pressure, and he's weak late if anything. I think this is Ziggy Willie. He's done similar, not much, but he's got back a bit further. So the further back and wide and things that you don't really want to be too nasty on these ones back here. But these two horses are both definitely horses you don't want to be nice to going forward. And Take Wing's one that that you want to be sympathetic to from that run. But again, the race is not great, so he's just He's just run a good race in a poor race. So that's that race. Last I want to show is Clearly Innocent at
There they go. They're off and
Scone.
now.
2 starts back, so it's since won again, and it's short price favourite for the country championship
There they
final.
go. They're off and racing now. And
There they go.
So this day, nearly every winner's come up the fence, so it was difficult to come wide and run on, which was a sort of a bit of a query against this horse going into the race. It wasn't impossible to sort of make a bit of ground, but nothing really came wide and won there, and definitely sustained a win. They might have got off the rails a bit and come with one run, but the pace is genuine. It's
they're
not
off and
overly
racing now, and all
quick.
summer
I will
long
have a
out
look
wide
at
on the track
this
began
one.
beautifully.
21st
Maybe
and
Gray's
second.
going for speed. Sergeant Dokes, Chrysalis, and off the track after all that is on.
Let's go. Clearly since race here, so they've gone out, steady and come home steady. So it's nearly basically a flat speed. It's just dead even tempo. So nearly all horses have had their chance to win. Clearly Innocent's is back at 3 wide, no cover. Oh, they might have cover. Might be 4 wide, no cover there. The way it's sort
Shibadali's
of
pretty
looking.
handy to them when they settle down. As they sort out their order, it's maybe Gray with all summer long, and after all that, making it a line of 3.
Maybe the
Shibadali
keep
was
up, if
next. He's
anything.
3 wide. Early, Chrysalis the fence, then Sergeant Dokes, Huswick, Blood Red Moon, all summer long's back on. In fact, Indiana's back on the rails.
So the point of
Behind
this
those
video
runners
is
was
that
Hot
you're
Vinny,
looking for
further back
horses that can
3 sheets,
overcome
clearly in the centre. 2 lengths to
issues, whether it be
Tribal Rock, and
speed,
last of all was
patterns,
Diagonal Town. It's maybe
track pattern
Gray.
like biases, and still run through those things and win. They don't happen all the time, but horses like Winks can overcome things a lot more frequently than others, but they're freaks. But so you get to this position here, and this horse has been wide, no cover, working the whole race, and they're not going slow. It's not easy to do. They're not going fast, so it's not suited by any pace up front and just working into it where they're in a position where they're slowing down. They're maintaining their speed the whole way, so this horse is having to work hard the whole way. Now it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 wide, no cover, and checked on the turn, so it's lost ground, it's lost momentum. and it's the widest runner.
400 metres to go after all that, going to
Beats
Maybe Great
being Grin for luck on the
Now,
rail.
bouncing again.
Full ball from Shivadali and Vienna Sergeant
Top of the straight, 400 metres to go after all that, going to
And
maybe
nothing else
Great
is really,
Riseless ran up
flashing
behind
home,
them.
so
All
it's
summer
doing
long
something
given
no one
full
else
ball
in the
from
race is doing.
Shivadali and Vienna Sergeant. Doakson clearly innocent, making his run. He's coming the widest. All summer.
And here's the incredible part is that he's still strong. Like,
Going after all that at the 150. Down the outside, clearly innocent, unleashing from
so
Sergeant
whereas everyone will
Doakes.
see
But
that as a big
clearly
win,
innocent.
you
He's
know,
sprinted
often
to the
that'll be
front
a
from
fast
after
pace
all that, and
contributing to that,
Sergeant
or
Doakes, and
a
clearly
track
innocent,
cut
a
or
big
something
win.
will have helped the
Clearly
horse,
innocent has
you
won
know,
it
come
from.
wide and win, but on this occasion, the horse has done everything wrong. It's had a lot against it. The pattern of the day was, against it, everything, and it's still strong and running away from a strong field late. So it's a pretty special horse. Strength through the lines always the key factor to a good horse. They'll overcome trouble and still be strong late. Say Winks again, or the old days. Maccabi Divas, things like this. They'd overcome anything and still be strong through a line. So he's well above a country championship final, that's for sure. When you find a horse like him, they just go through the grades. They have no issue. So there's a few examples of things I look for. There's, again, I'll touch on it, different things in more detail at a later stage. But hopefully this helps, a few people with ideas of things to look for and how to set themselves up to look at races without just watching vision, because that last race was a good example. There's probably 10 different reasons why that horse could have been a good run or a flattered run or a run full of merit there, and you've just got to do your prep work to make sure that you know what you're looking for before you watch the vision, and what you're looking at is real, and it'll improve your results vastly at the end of the day. So thanks guys.